Hi everyone, it's Dylan, founder of Makers, here with a very special conversation with Makers man, Justin Baldoni. We couldn't be more thrilled, and we're going to bring him right on. Oh, look at your fancy backdrop.
Hi. I
Are
don't
you?
mean it to I don't mean it to be fancy. I'm
Well,
trying to get out of the house.
I just mean pretty, and it's a nice day. Hi, Emily.
Oh, it's a family affair.
Oh, oh,
Hi.
hi. What's
Here.
happening?
You want to say hi? Here. Say hi, Dylan.
Hi.
You do?
I have something to say
Is
to
it
you.
Okay.
We're gonna keep Max away from you guys.
Oh, okay. Do you want to say hi to Dylan?
Hi.
You want to tell her about Daddy's book?
You.
You want me to tell her about Daddy's book? Okay. Okay, you want to say bye?
Hold on, what does this say?
Who did I write this book for?
Oh, look. Hold it up. Do you have the book? Can
Yeah, look. There's half of your face, just like Daddy.
you look so much alike out there. Look at that. So sweet.
Do you look like Daddy? Mwah. Okay, say bye.
Bye.
It's a party out here. Well, hi, Dylan. So that's my family.
Oh, hi, Justin. I mean, that's sort of heaven. You're there. You got everyone running around. You got the animals, kids, the wife.
It's so funny. I went outside because they were all inside, and then they follow me outside, and that's the life. That's it.
Well,
You can imagine
all
trying to
about.
write the book. You can imagine trying to write the book. I had sequestered myself in a room in our old house, and I was like banging on the doors, and I just felt terrible the whole time. But here we are. We've done it.
But you wrote it. How long did that take, by the way?
I mean, it was a multi-year process, but I would say from it was a solid year. The majority of it happening while I was in post-production on Clouds, my last film during the pandemic. So it was like from, I would say, February, March through November.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's a lot, but it was
So
worth
let's
it.
talk about it. All right, Makers audience, we had a good prologue leading up to this moment, but we have a big book that just came out called Man Enough, Redefining Masculinity. And
Undefining.
Undefining. I don't know. That's the question. It's key that it is undefining. I mean, let's talk question number one, because redefining is not enough, right? We have to undefine.
And early on when we met and when you invited me to be a Maker's Man, which I will forever just put that on my list of things that I somehow got a chance to be a part of. I thought that I wanted to redefine masculinity. I thought that it was like, redefine and change the definition of what it means to be a man. And over the last, honestly, 6 years, I kind of have come to the conclusion that redefining wouldn't really help it, because first of all, who am I to redefine it? Like,
if anyone can, you can.
But who am I, right? Like, if anyone was going to redefine it, it would be probably somebody from a marginalized group of some sort. So it's not going to be this straight white cisgendered white man saying, I'm going to redefine masculinity, because that would be exactly the problem. So I think I just realized that we need to undefine it, because it is the definition of it that creates the box that perpetuates so much suffering and causes so much of our collective unhappiness. So,
And I mean, I'm pretty impressed that the way you did it, when we're producing Makers and any of our documentaries, my comments are always the same. It's like, it's not personal enough. You're just talking about the issues. You're not showing an example of it. And I think one of the things that's beautiful about Man Enough is, and brave, by the way, is that you're very vulnerable. And you're not just talking about this thing out there. You're talking about this thing right here.
Yeah.
And I mean, even to the point, I have to be honest, as the mother of 2 teenagers, I sort of miss those little nuggets. You talk about porn and your relationship there. I mean, I'm just cutting to the chase. And, you know, for me, you know, I as a mom with all of these devices and everything that's available and what that does to a boy and what the expectations of sex, I just thought that was very brave of you. So how did you go through that process of open?
Yeah, it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I did the TED Talk, I was wrestling with that part of my life. You know, it was very interesting to be kind of thrust into the public sphere as an example of what like it meant to be a good man, which the whole binary thing is very off. And on top of that, like being labeled a feminist and like starting to use my voice in that way. And then also, you know, having moments where I'm like, well, what does this mean? Does some of my behavior mean that I'm not? Is this like, and I just had to understand more. And what I kind of came to terms with is if I don't talk about it, then there, you know, look, I believe that the vast majority of men have some form of issue with porn. Because at early ages, especially if you're in your 30s and now even in your 20s now, you're learning about sex through porn. And I'm not calling out the porn industry, and I'm very specific in the book. I'm calling out my relationship to it because so many of us men are exposed to porn and images and these types of things while we're going through various stages of our, you know, puberty and development, and also those moments in our life tend to also be the hardest and the loneliest, and we have the most trauma, and we end up linking these things together. So porn ends up becoming, for a lot of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, a medicine.
Yeah.
Because it goes from curiosity, innocent curiosity, because of course, like we don't talk about these things in our culture. We can't talk about sex. We can't, you know, even the idea of like the female breast. You know, there's other cultures around the world that the breast is not sexualized. It's something that literally feeds. It's you know, it gives life. In our culture, it's sexualized. So like growing up and being 8, 9 years old, I remember seeing the Playboys, and it was like these naked women, but it was like covered up. So your mind goes, "Ooh, what's that?" So then we covet it, right? It's a sexualized thing, and we spend our whole lives thinking about breasts. Where in other countries, they're like, "What's wrong with you guys?"
No, I know.
Like, you know.
Well, even I mean, when you're growing up as a kid, right? The instinct of parents, right, is like, oh wait, mommy's naked, you know?
That happens, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot of like, there's a sex positivity. It's a very interesting thing that I'm learning a lot about. What I'm really focused on though is taking shame out of that, as I say in the book, that like dimly lit basement of our heart, and exposing it to the sun, because it doesn't do us any good. And as men, we're not allowed to talk about things. We're not allowed to talk about these things that we struggle with. We definitely can't talk about them with women. We for sure can't talk about them with other men. And unless we start talking about this stuff, nothing's going to get better. So my talking about, as an example, porn, insert your thing there.
Right.
It's like every human being has it. And it's crazy for us that we like otherize each other, and we're like, oh well, you know, they have their thing, you know, I don't want to, I would never share my thing. But like all of us are curating ourselves on social media to like have this idealized life, and all of us are suffering in our own ways, men and women. And look, at the end of the day, we're all raised and socialized in the same patriarchal culture. So
it's like, I'm so happy you're having this conversation. And shame is something that happens that we all have to deal with. You know, there's a femininity problem too, right? There are expectations there. There are things we don't talk about. It's maybe not quite as overt, but there are stereotypical ways.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Dr. Brene Brown talks a lot about that.
I mean, Brene Brown I know. And that's what I'm saying. So these conversations, this book, Man Enough, for those of you who are just tuning in at Makers, we're talking to Baldoni and his book, Man Enough, which run out and buy, because it's not just for men. I mean, I'm a mom of 2 boys. I'm a person who has grew up in, you know, some parts stereotypical, some very unstereotypical, you know, environments. But it's just about that idea that there are social norms to me, and it resonates with everyone. So I wonder for you, is there a nature versus nurture? Like, you describe yourself very authentically as this sensitive, you were sensitive growing up and sort of pretty much the opposite of the stereotypical masculine. So is that like, do you think we're all born in that and then we just get pushed on this masculinity, or I don't know.
I think that I'm not the expert. I definitely think I think there's a spectrum with every human being, right? I think there's a spectrum. Um, and we have to just be mindful of the spectrum, because I think what's happened is that we've defined masculinity in such a way that even if it doesn't matter where you land in the spectrum, you got to fit into these margins here. And these margins are like the defined margins that fall outside of them, that you are not enough. And what does that mean by not being enough? It means you're gay, or you're a woman. Let's look at our language here. So those are the things. Those are the ways in which we define not being enough when you are a male and you're trying to fit into this patriarchal system. And then, of course, women have their own versions of being socialized in that way. You know, you have to fit inside the box that we decided that you need to be in, and then you fall outside of that box, which is what you're doing at Makers. You're breaking the glass ceiling here, and you're undefining femininity in a lot of ways. And the same way we want to undefine masculinity, because in the same way that as men we need to ensure that we don't police or bully men for being on the spectrum of human, we have to do the same thing then with women to make sure that women are not bullied or talked down to, right? And we have a double standard. That's just the way that it is. We have a pretty massive double standard. So nature versus nurture, I think that I don't know. I thought this a lot. I wonder who I would be if I was raised in a completely different culture, and one of the few matriarchal cultures in the world, maybe. I don't know who I would be. I wonder who I would be if I wasn't born to my father, who was a fairly sensitive and emotional man, and if I was raised much more of a traditionally masculine household. I know that I have a pretty natural pull towards a heavy lower nature, and that's one of the, you know, I'm a Baha'i, so in the Baha'i faith, we have a big belief that a lot of our purpose here on earth is to figure out how to live in our spirit and connect with the Creator, with God, and that pulls us up out of our higher nature, right? Kind of like a tree. If you think about a tree, you know, if you think about the soil, right? The tree is always ascending and growing up towards the sun, right? Towards God. But the roots have to be in the ground, right? And so there's no denying the fact that we're human and we have physical bodies and we have lower natures. That's fine. Let those be our roots. They're there in the ground. You don't want to live in the ground, though. You want to live up. And so I don't know about the nature versus nurture thing. I know that I'm a pretty naturally competitive person, but I know competition is basically an outcome, a product of the patriarchy. So would I be competitive had I not been raised where I am? I don't know the answer to that question, but here's what I do know. I do know that it's my job to challenge and to question. And we can't burn it down overnight. I don't want to. I don't know, because I don't have a solution for it. But at the same time, if I question it and I say, well, this isn't really working for me, and I know it's not working for him and for him and for him, and I know it's not working for her, and I've heard from my trans folks it's not working for them, and my queer folks it's not working for them. So maybe we should just question all of it, and we should allow everybody to be who they are. And the next generation can take that step into figuring out if there's a better system, a system that invites men to be more full human versions of themselves versus the most masculine male versions of themselves. That a system that's not built on competition.
Yeah.
You know, a system that's not built on, well, if I'm not doing enough, or if I'm not enough of this, then there's no place for me, right?
Right.
A system that isn't, you know, if I'm not the provider and taking care of my wife and my family, then I'm not a man. Because right now it's very black or white, and anybody that falls in between is inherently left with this, like they have to work through very intense feelings of of not being enough. Because that's just the way that the world has been set up. And those are, I have 37 years of being brought up in that culture. So it's a question, it's learning, it's unlearning, it's trying to figure it out, like so many of us white people are doing, right? In terms of Black Lives Matter and understanding, the system.
I have an amazing woman who always said to me, love is a verb, right? This is a verb. Like you haven't figured it out. You're undefining now, and that is something that you need to stay active in always. It's like a new muscle that you have to exercise.
Yeah. And it will be, and that's also what I say in the book, is that it's very much, it's not written from a place of being on the other side. It's not written from a place of, I've arrived, come join me over here in my little happiness bubble, and here's the secret to undefining your master. I don't have the secret, but I think together we can find it. And all that I want to see, I want men to be asking questions.
But and that's what I think, and women too. Again, Maker's Audience, I just want to keep reminding, if you've just joined, I'm here with Justin Baldoni, the amazing Maker's man, who has written this book, Man Enough, that's so much about...
Oh my God, I'm wearing the same shirt that I wore. Look at that.
Oh, you do it.
I'm literally wearing the same shirt.
It's a pretty brilliant cover, I gotta say. Was that your idea?
I have to give a shout out to Brandy, who is head of marketing at Wayfarer Studios. It was her idea.
Go Brandy.
To do the half and the half.
It's brilliant. I love it. I love a good cover. And anyway, I've seen a bunch of people saying I'm definitely going to read this book, and I do think so. It's on so many levels, man or woman. I think resonates. And I'm also curious, because you talk about the next generation. We're undefining so much right now, it feels like.
Yeah.
So how
much.
do you have a boy and a girl?
Yeah.
Oh my God. These adorable little things. And so can you think of specific things? Like, I remember when I was growing up, my mother was playing Free to Be You and Me all the time, right? And that was sort of the vibe that I was getting. And there was a song, Billy wants a doll, and that was, but they talk about Billy should have a doll. And at the end, Billy gets his doll. But so I'm wondering, what are you and Emily practicing actively? Can you think of examples like that?
Oh yeah, so many. We had an interesting thing happen the other day, which caught us by surprise, and I'll lead up to this event. But one of the main thing that we're doing right now is we're making sure that they pick what they like. That we're not influencing it, because it's very easy as a parent to subtly drive your children into conforming to something that you think is best for them. And shout out to all the parents, by the way, because at the end of the day, all of us just have a deep desire to protect our children from the very cruel world that exists, that is waiting for them. And all of us parents, whether we are admitting it or not, have tons of shit and trauma that we're working through. And the more you're working through it, the more you're aware of what you're passing on to your kids. The less you're working on it, the more you don't realize how much you're messing up your kids, because you're just throwing it onto them. Right. So the first step of that is just awareness. And one of the things we want to be aware of is that we're not like driving them to anything, meaning like, I'm not giving Maxwell the blue shirts. I'm not giving him, trucks and monster trucks and dinosaurs, right? But our kids naturally were predisposed to the very traditional gender norms. My son was just blue, 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 gray, red, blue, and like just monster trucks and cars and like Paw Patrol, and then he's never even watched Paw Patrol. Like it's never even been on the TV. He just saw a picture. He heard the song. It's unbelievable just how much he is a boy.
Yeah. And
how much my daughter is a girl. And she is just like, before, I swear, it was like pink and dresses and princesses before she even knew what a Disney princess movie was. It was like, and Emily and I remember us trying to here's what we did do. We tried to actually guide her into like jeans once and overalls and like, and she threw a tantrum. She was not having it. So we were like, okay, great. We're not going to try to change this. This is her and this is him. However, in that, it's really important that we kind of, and I want to say this delicately, but I know what the world's going to do to them. I know the boxes the world's going to put on my daughter and the box the world's going to, put my son in. I already know that when they get to school, Maya's going to be asked to conform, to be in a box, not be too much, to never be more than she is at the sake of a boy's fragile ego, that she's going to cross her legs and be a good little girl and all of that. And my son is going to be taught to be a robot, to be a stoic, brave, adventurous, to take physical risks with his body, to be loud and obnoxious and, take up space and to not cry when he gets hurt.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what the world's going to do to them. So I believe it's my job as a parent to build a foundation, to teach them and to prepare them for that so that they already are sure and confident in who they are. And the way that we're doing that is by reaffirming in Maxwell his sensitivity, his compassion, his selflessness, his trying to build language so that he understands actually what these words even mean. So, if, a lot of times when you're 3.5, you'll start to cry, and you can either repress it, and that's what you learn, or you can let it out. And so when we see those little moments, we say, it's okay, baby, you can cry. Because naturally, when he skins his knee, my son wants to be like, I'm okay. And we have to remind him, like, are you? It's okay if you're not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And these are things that nobody ever did for me. Because right now I'm 37, and to this day, I'm constantly trying to do that for myself. Like, no, I'm not okay. I'm saying out loud, I'm okay, but I'm like, no, but I'm not okay. I'm not okay. It's okay that I'm not okay. I'm unlearning all this shit, right? And so what I'm trying to do is really help Maxwell recognize that, as we say every single night, the strongest muscle in his whole body is his heart. That his heart is his center, that he's compassionate and empathetic and sensitive, and that these are good things. And then for my daughter, I'm trying to also build a foundation for her that she knows that while the world might tell her that she should be in this little box, I want her to be brave and know that it's okay to take physical risk and to be athletic and to be strong and to exert herself and to take up space. So we're trying to we're doing a little reverse damage control right now, to build them up emotionally so that when they get out in the world, they have a strong foundation. And then the other day, what happened, and that leads me to this long welcome to this TED Talk, is my son, they got in a fight the other day because Maya was playing with her princesses and Maxwell was playing with his dinosaurs, and they were building, they don't watch a ton of TV, but then they were building with their magnetiles. Maxwell built a castle, and he said that princesses can't come in the castle with the dinosaurs. And I said, it was like, you could have just heard the record stop. I went, eh! I said, what? I said, what? Who told, and for my first question was like, who told you that, Maxwell? Because Maya was crying. And he's like, no one. I'm like, nobody told you that? He's like, no. I'm like, well, why would you think that? And and who knows if this was right? And I'm sure there's going to be people on here that say I did this wrong, but that's just, the internet, right? The court of public opinion. But I said, did you know that princesses are stronger than dinosaurs?
Good for you.
That's all I could think of. I said, princesses are stronger than dinosaurs, and dinosaurs love princesses. So there's plenty of room for both of them in your castle. And then because we're starting to hear Maya and Maxwell, Maya say well, girls wear dresses and boys can't wear dresses. And I said, well, some boys wear dresses, and that's okay. And because at the end of the day, they need to know that there's a spectrum, and there's always going to be people that fall out of the spectrum. While it's not going to be the majority of people, there's always going to be people that are not in these margins. And so, you know what? If a boy wears a dress to school, she cannot be someone that makes fun of the boy.
Yeah.
And the same thing for Maxwell. If a boy wears a dress, he can't make fun of the boy. Boys can wear dresses if they really want to. And that's the whole point. It's not trying to change our children to say wear dresses or, do this. It's trying to say if that's a choice somebody else makes, And it's
That's okay.
your job to be sure in yourself and confident in yourself enough to know that they are awesome and be their friend, and that that's a great choice that they made.
Justin, you're talking about it. I mean, you really hit my heart when you said a little bit ago how we all come to parenting with some trauma of some kind. And there are two you can take, right? Yeah, I know. Some of us more than others. Not talking about anyone here, maybe. But you can either bury that or you can address that. And part of addressing that isn't even like, is having open conversations in a household in general and being emotional and talking about those things. And so just the fact that you're creating that dialogue and not just saying, oh, you just talked about dinosaurs being stronger than princesses. Let's not talk about that. You know, you engage, whether you get it right or not.
Yeah.
We don't always get it.
And you're not always going to get it right, but you can always go back to the conversation if you learn something.
Totally. You've
And
raised it.
Exactly. That's the thing about parenting that I think is really important for any parents that are watching is, let's say I did it wrong and I had to chat with you and I told you about it and you said, you know, Justin, I think you could have said this because here's why. I can go back to my kids and say, hey, guess what? Daddy was wrong.
Yes.
And that's not something that we do as parents. We don't like admitting we're wrong. But if we don't like admitting we're wrong, what are we teaching our kids?
Well, and
it's the same thing.
Things too. Sometimes dinosaurs are stronger. Sometimes princesses are stronger. Like there's gray in here too. Anyway, we only have one more minute, Justin. You and I could go on forever. All right, Makers Women, we are here with the amazing Justin Baldoni. Pull up that book, Justin. He has written this extraordinary book for all of us, where he is very vulnerable about undefining masculinity. And it's just a book that's very personal and I think will resonate with all of us. And so I'm grateful.
It's for everybody. It's for women. It's for everybody.
It's for everyone.
But it is written for men. I want to say this. So if a woman gets this book, it is written for men, but because that's where I'm comfortable. That's my lane.
Yeah.
And if it were a woman reading the book, what I have heard and the feedback I'm getting in real time is that it's a peek into the male psyche, into the emotional life of the man. And so many of us men, regardless of our sexual orientation or background or class or privilege, all have been raised in the same system. So then are all suffering in similar ways. So I would invite you to invite a man to read it with you. Don't force it on him, but invite him to read it with you. Because at the end of the day, this is a book for men, but I hope that healing can happen for anybody who reads it.
Well, and we're part of the change. Culture is created and masculinity is created by men and women, and we all play a role in undefining it. So,
and thank you for making it possible for me to write it.
That's
the other big thing.
This, Justin, is in interviews in my world, whenever anyone interviews a man, it's always like it's more stoic and less, we as women are emotional. We talk about our family, we talk about work-life balance, and you just don't see that a lot. So we do this thing at Makers called the Makers Minute.
Oh yeah.
And but it's like we wouldn't even think. I was like, should I do this with Justin? I'm like, of course I should do this with Justin.
We can do it.
I know you know what it is for reasons
I don't remember any of the questions.
Okay. So we have a minute. Okay. And we're going to try to get through as many questions as we can, Justin. And Gloria Steinem holds the record at 16.
Oh, well, that's a ceiling I don't need to try to break. Well, I don't think that 16 is a lot of questions.
All right. I have Kelly Matusik. Are you going to time this for me? Good. She's going to text me when we're done. All right.
Okay.
On your mark. Get set. Go. Text or email?
Text.
Favorite part of your daily routine?
Morning coffee.
Something that makes you hopeful?
My kids.
Something that pisses you off?
LA traffic.
Ah, good one. Something you wish you did more often?
Meditate.
Something you wish you did less often?
Self-criticize.
Oh, God. What's your current cell phone background?
My kids.
Any hidden talents?
Donald Duck.
If you are what you eat, what are you?
Paleo food.
That counts. Last TV show or movie that you loved?
Madam Secretary.
A female historical figure you'd most like to have dinner with?
Gloria Steinem.
A woman who's had the biggest impact on your life?
My wife.
And on that note, you made it to 14. You gave the grace of Gloria Steinem, still the record, but you got pretty close, Justin Baldoni. And you ended on the wife. Like, come on. All right, hold up that book. All right, makers, this is it. Go get this at your local bookseller. What are the best ways to get it? What do we join? What is the social media? What do we?
It's honestly, you can get it anywhere now. You can walk into your local Target. You can walk into your local bookstore. You can get it on Amazon, which is the fastest way to get it at this point. It doesn't really matter. Barnes & Noble, anywhere. It's all over the country.
Great.
Crazy. It's amazing.
Congratulations, Justin.
Thank you for always supporting me, Dylan. I appreciate you so much.
Sending you so much love.
I just want to say before we go, the only reason I was able to write this book is because you guys have been doing the work as women to liberate yourselves from this system for so long. And as Liz Plank says in her book, our liberations are tied together. So thank you for paving the way.
Thank you for helping us. All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.